imagine you're just going about your day, completely normal afternoon.
Right, it's a regular day.
Yeah, and suddenly your phone rings, you glance down, and it's a loved one, maybe a parent, your child, or your spouse. You pick it up, and their voice is just absolutely panicked. I mean, they are begging for your help.
Oh, well, that's terrifying.
It really is. They might say they've been in a terrible car accident or, they're in sudden legal trouble and they need you to wire money immediately to get them out of it.
Yeah.
Everything inside of you, like your deepest biological instinct, screams to just drop whatever you are doing and comply.
Of course. That's human nature.
But what if the person on the other end of that line wasn't them at all? What if you were talking to an AI clone generated in seconds from, a short audio clip they posted online months ago?
Which is happening all the time now.
Exactly. Welcome, listeners, to another My Mind MashUps deep dive, where we unravel mysteries, spark curiosity, and make sense of complex ideas together.
Glad to be here.
Before we really get into today's topic, I want to take a quick moment to thank all the listeners who showed their appreciation by buying us a coffee. It really means the world to us.
It really does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if you would like to support our channel, the link is in the description below. Also, I want to remind you that we are now available on Apple Podcast.
Definitely go check us out there.
And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy content that makes you think.
Absolutely.
Because every deep dive we do here is about three core things, right? Sparking curiosity, challenging assumptions, and expanding understanding.
That's the goal.
Today, we are pulling from two incredibly comprehensive reports. They're called The Erosion of Truth in the Synthetic Media Era and the Trust Collapse Report.
Both are just packed with data.
Right. And our mission is to explore how synthetic media is fracturing our reality, the psychological toll this takes on all of us, and, how we can actually protect ourselves.
Because we really need to know how to navigate this.
We do. Okay, let's unpack this. Because we really need to start with why that phone call scenario I just mentioned is so devastatingly effective.
Yeah, it's not just a technical trick.
Right. It targets something so deeply embedded in human nature that we don't even realize we're doing it.
Exactly. It exploits a psychological shortcut known as the realism heuristic.
The realism heuristic.
Right. For the entirety of human history, literally hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, our biological wiring has operated on a very simple, reliable assumption.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, if we hear something clearly with our own ears, or see it happen with our own eyes, it must be real. High-fidelity audio and video have functioned as the ultimate, undeniable proof of reality.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, our brains use that sensory input to bypass critical thinking because, historically, the eyes and ears didn't lie.
I was thinking about it like a counterfeit signature.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right, like for centuries, a physical signature or a high-definition photograph or a crystal-clear audio recording were these forge-proof stamps of authenticity.
Yeah, the absolute gold standard.
If you saw a video of an event happening, that was the gold standard of evidence. The case was completely closed. But looking at the current landscape, AI has completely stolen the pen.
That is exactly what's happening.
We can't trust the signature anymore, but our brains haven't received the software update yet.
Right. What's fascinating here is how quickly the collapse of this realism heuristic is translating into massive, real-world financial devastation.
Oh, the financial hit is unbelievable.
It is. When the topic of deepfakes comes up, the cultural conversation almost always drifts toward viral political videos.
Like the fake video of Ukrainian President Zelensky surrendering that went around back in 2022.
Exactly. Those are the stories that grab international headlines. But if you look at the data, the scam economy is the most concrete, everyday example of this trust collapse.
Yeah, it hits much closer to home.
It really does. It takes a highly abstract philosophical problem about the nature of truth and turns it into a devastating personal reality.
And the data from the sources is just staggering. We aren't talking about a few isolated prank calls or minor phishing attempts anymore.
Not at all.
We are talking about highly sophisticated, targeted attacks that are draining accounts. Look at what's happening at the corporate level.
The Hong Kong case.
Yes. The World Economic Forum highlighted a case in 2024 involving a finance worker in Hong Kong. This employee was tricked into transferring $25.5 million.
Wow, $25.5 million.
And the mechanics of the scam are terrifying. They didn't just clone a voice, they set up a full deepfake video call.
That takes so much coordination.
It does. Scammers impersonated the company's chief financial officer and several other executives simultaneously.
So the realism heuristic completely bypassed the company's standard security protocols.
Exactly, because the workers' eyes and ears told them they were looking at their boss on a normal daily Zoom call.
That case perfectly illustrates the vulnerability. And the financial hemorrhage is trickling down to everyday individuals at an alarming rate, too.
Yeah, the FBI's 2025 Internet Crime Complaint Center data, the IC3 report, backs that up entirely.
What did they find?
They recorded over 22,000 complaints directly linked to AI manipulation, and that resulted in $893 million in adjusted losses.
Nearly $1 billion.
Almost $1 billion gone, and that number only reflects the people who actually came forward to report it.
Right, the true number is undoubtedly much, much higher.
Definitely.
And the Federal Trade Commission data reveals a particularly grim trend regarding impersonation scams targeting older adults.
Oh, man, yeah.
The losses for older demographics in these specific types of scams grew eightfold between 2020 and 2024.
Eightfold.
Yeah, hitting $445 million.
Yeah.
People who grew up in an era where a voice on the phone was an absolute guarantee of identity are being caught completely off guard.
That is just heartbreaking.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the success rate for the scammers is incredibly high. The cybersecurity company McAfee conducted a study and found that 77% of people who received a cloned voice message ended up losing money.
Wait, 77%? That is a terrifying success rate.
It's massive.
And the scale is expanding exponentially, you know? The Deep Strike report projects there will be 8 million deepfakes in circulation by 2025.
Which paints a picture of a digital landscape completely saturated with high-tech traps.
Just waiting for anyone to make a split-second emotional decision.
Exactly. And that scale brings us to a crucial pivot point in the research.
Okay, let's hear it.
The financial losses are obviously catastrophic for the victims. But the scam economy itself is just a symptom of a much wider systemic disease.
Oh, so?
But when you force a society to constantly fend off high-tech deception, their baseline level of trust in the world begins to erode in unpredictable ways.
Which makes me wonder about the broader psychological fallout. I mean, isn't the bigger issue not just falling for the fake, but what happens when we stop believing what is actually real?
That's the real danger.
Because if I reach a point where I can't trust a video call from my boss or a frantic voicemail from my mother, it seems impossible that I would trust a national news broadcast. Or, like, a piece of video evidence presented in a high-profile trial.
Right, the trust just vanishes.
So, looking at the research on the liar's dividend, it seems like this is the exact spillover effect we are seeing.
It is.
Because everyone knows deepfakes exist, a guilty politician who gets caught on a very real, very authentic audio recording accepting a bribe doesn't even need to prove the tape was doctored anymore.
They could just wave it away and say, that's an AI deepfake.
Exactly.
That is the insidious nature of the liar's dividend. The mere existence of the technology provides a massive shield for dishonest actors.
They just get a free pass.
They get a free pass because the public is already primed to doubt their own senses. The burden of proof gets flipped entirely.
Right.
Truth no longer carries any inherent weight, and that seed of doubt is instantly planted in the public consciousness.
And the burden of figuring out what is true gets pushed entirely onto us, the audience.
Yep, it falls on the individual.
That leads into a concept from the sources that felt incredibly relatable. They call it verification fatigue.
No, absolutely.
It's that profound sense of exhaustion you feel when you realize that every single image, every audio clip, every political headline, even every product review you see online
requires you to do a whole investigation.
Yeah, it requires you to become an amateur private investigator just to know if you are being manipulated. You eventually just hit a wall.
Human beings simply do not have the cognitive bandwidth to independently verify every piece of data they encounter in a day.
No, it's impossible.
Historically, trust functioned as a mechanism to reduce our cognitive load. We relied on institutions, right? Journalists, regulators, experts.
So we didn't have to personally investigate the chemical safety of our food.
Exactly. Or fact-check every detail of a foreign conflict.
Yeah.
The collapse of that delegation system is what researchers call the 4 layers of the trust collapse.
Let's weave through those layers because it perfectly maps out how we arrived at this breaking point. It really starts with the sheer volume of claims we face every day.
The information overload.
Right. We are experiencing an unprecedented information overload. People aren't just consuming a morning paper anymore. They are drowning in an endless stream of hot takes, 10-second clips, out-of-context screenshots, and AI-generated summaries.
And because the brain cannot responsibly process that volume of information, our default reaction shifts to defense. We retreat.
We just shut down.
Yeah, and that drives the second layer, which is institutional distrust. When people are overloaded and constantly bombarded with conflicting narratives, their trust in national media, the government, and historical pillars of authority becomes conditional and highly polarized.
The foundational question shifts, right?
Yes, it shifts from, is this information true, to who benefits if I believe this information.
Wow. Add synthetic evidence to the mix, which is the third layer, and the foundation completely crumbles. The tools make it effortless to generate realistic voices and faces, effectively killing the old rule of seeing is believing.
And what ties all of this chaos together is the fourth layer, the environment where it happens, emotional acceleration.
Right.
The digital platforms we spend our lives on reward urgency, outrage, and novelty above all else. And when your emotions are spiking, your capacity for logic and verification completely plummets.
It just disappears. And the data tracking this institutional collapse is sobering. It quantifies exactly how fractured the landscape has become.
It really does.
Looking at the numbers from Pew and Gallup, it's a steep drop. In late 2025, Pew Research found that trust in national news organizations dropped to 56%.
Which is a huge decline.
It's a massive 20-point decline since 2016. Local news traditionally holds up better, but it is also falling. Gallup found that overall trust in mass media has hit a record low of 28%.
And the erosion extends far beyond the media ecosystem. Trust in the foundational pillars of governance is plunging alongside it.
Yeah, the numbers there are rough too.
Gallup reported that confidence in U.S. courts fell to just 35%. Pew reported that a mere 17% of Americans trust the federal government to do what is right most of the time.
Just 17%. And what stands out in the data is how this distrust fractures along clear political lines. It paints a picture of a completely divided reality.
Right, it's very split.
For instance, the data shows that 71% of Republicans have a favorable view of the Supreme Court, while only 26% of Democrats share that view.
It flips depending on the institution.
Exactly. Conversely, when it comes to national news organizations, Republicans' trust has fallen to 44%, while Democrats report much higher levels of trust.
That polarization is a critical symptom of the broader issue. It indicates that society isn't just universally losing trust. Society is losing a shared baseline of reality.
People are just retreating into their own corners.
Yeah, they retreat into ideological factions, choosing to only place their trust in institutions or information sources that perfectly align with their pre-existing worldview.
If this is resonating, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next deep dive.
Definitely.
So here's where it gets really interesting. We can see that the trust is gone. The data proves it. But why are our brains so wildly susceptible to this specific brand of digital chaos?
It's a great question.
I look at it like a junk food diet for the mind. Our digital feeds operate like fast food chains. They are constantly serving up outrage and anxiety as the main course, simply because those are the most biologically addictive flavors.
That is a perfect analogy. The collision between our ancient evolutionary biology and modern algorithms is at the heart of the crisis.
So how does the biology part work?
To understand why the junk food is so appealing, we have to look at confirmation bias.
Yeah.
The human brain is naturally wired to prefer, seek out, and accept information that validates what we already believe. The sources framed this through the 3M model: mistrust, misinformation, and motivated reasoning.
Okay, break that down for us.
In a highly polarized environment, if you already harbor deep mistrust toward a specific group, you will eagerly embrace misinformation about them through motivated reasoning, regardless of how absurd the claim might be.
And the algorithms powering our feeds know exactly how to feed that instinct. They also heavily exploit negativity bias.
Oh, absolutely.
The concept that negative, threatening, or anger-inducing information impacts our psychology much more deeply than positive or nuanced news.
Because negativity bias is deeply tied to our evolutionary survival mechanism of loss aversion.
Like survival of the most paranoid.
Kind of, yeah. If early humans heard a rustle in the bushes, the ones who assumed it was a dangerous predator survived. The ones who assumed it was just the wind did not.
Makes sense.
A perceived threat demands immediate physiological attention. In the modern digital environment, this bias guarantees that shocking or fearful content is consumed, clicked, and shared at a much higher velocity.
It deepens our collective anxiety because the threat sensors are always firing.
Exactly. And that constant firing sets the stage for the illusory truth effect, which is one of the most unsettling concepts in the research.
Oh, this part blew my mind.
It turns out that if you expose someone to a false claim enough times, it actually starts to feel true to the human brain, completely, regardless of the source.
Even if the person initially knows the claim is entirely fabricated.
Yes. The sheer repetition creates a sense of cognitive ease. The brain processes familiar information faster, and it mistakes that processing fluency for truth.
That is wild. When you combine those cognitive vulnerabilities, confirmation bias, negativity bias, and the illusory truth effect and hand them over to engagement-based algorithms, you create a perfect storm for manipulation.
The algorithms dictating what we see are designed with a singular goal: to maximize the amount of time you spend on the platform.
They don't care about truth.
They are completely agnostic to the truth. They naturally prioritize emotional acceleration and divisive content because anger and fear are the emotions that keep your thumb scrolling.
They basically weaponize our own evolutionary survival biases against us.
They do.
It sounds incredibly bleak, but looking at the broader historical context, I have to wonder if AI is really the sole villain in this story. I mean, didn't generative AI just throw high-octane gasoline onto a fire that had already been burning for a long time?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, distinguishing the fuel from the fire is vital. Generative AI is absolutely the gasoline accelerating the burn rate.
But the fire was already there.
Yes. The erosion of trust is a long-term structural issue that predates this technology by decades.
Right. The sources make it clear that this declining credibility is intertwined with decades of widening economic inequality, deep political polarization, the corporate consolidation of local media, and very real historical failures by trusted institutions.
It's complex.
You can't just point to a computer program and blame it for an entire society losing faith in its leaders and systems.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Furthermore, it is crucial to recognize that a certain degree of distrust is actually incredibly healthy for a functioning society.
Wait, really?
Yes, the objective isn't to return to an era of blind, unquestioning trust in authority. Healthy skepticism is the exact mechanism that protects individuals from state propaganda, from flawed scientific claims, and from the very financial scams we discussed earlier.
So the goal is balance.
The goal of navigating this era is to transition from blind trust to informed trust.
We also need to acknowledge that synthetic media itself isn't inherently malicious, right? The reports highlight several positive, practical applications happening right now.
Yeah, there are a lot of good uses.
Politicians and educators are using synthetic media to seamlessly translate their speeches into dozens of languages, retaining their natural vocal cadence to reach diverse groups.
That's a great application.
And human rights activists operating under oppressive regimes are using AI-generated satire and avatars to safely criticize authoritarian leaders without exposing their actual identities.
Which is saving lives.
Exactly. Plus, AI voice cloning is proving to be a miraculous, life-changing tool for people suffering from severe speech impairments, allowing them to communicate using a synthesized version of their own voice.
The technology is fundamentally agnostic. The danger lies entirely in how it intersects with our fragile information ecosystem.
Right.
Consider the rise of AI chatbots as search engines. The Pew data indicates that 9% of U.S. adults now say they get their news from AI chatbots, at least sometimes.
9% sounds relatively low, but the adoption curve is growing rapidly.
It is growing rapidly. The critical takeaway from that data point is that among those early adopters, roughly half say they at least sometimes notice the chatbot giving them inaccurate or fabricated news information.
So they know it's hallucinating sometimes.
Yes. The immediate existential danger isn't that a single rogue chatbot will suddenly replace all traditional news outlets.
What is it then?
The danger is the seamless blending of reality. Imagine scrolling through a feed where a meticulously researched real news article sits right next to a synthetic AI-generated image, followed by a hallucinated AI news summary, followed by a deceptively edited video clip.
It's all just thrown together.
The boundaries of provenance completely blur together into one indistinguishable stream of content.
In the AI era, proving the provenance of a piece of media, its digital paper trail, exactly where it originated and how it was altered, is basically the new standard of proof.
Yes, provenance is everything now.
Which leads us to the most pressing part of the discussion. How do we actually fix this, or at least survive it? But before we get into the solutions, I want to remind everyone to like, comment, and subscribe to hear more My Mind Mashups deep dives.
This raises an important question. If the realism heuristic is permanently broken, and we cannot blindly trust institutions to curate the truth for us, how do we navigate a synthetic reality without succumbing to paralyzing paranoia?
Well, the reports outline a defense strategy across 3 different levels, right? Structural, psychological, and practical.
Let's start with the structural level, because the tech platforms and the developers hold a massive amount of responsibility here.
They really do.
We're seeing the early stages of a new infrastructure for truth. There is a heavy, coordinated push for provenance and authentication technologies.
Like what?
The most prominent example is the C2PA standard, which attaches cryptographic content credentials to digital media. Think of it as a tamper-proof digital nutrition label for content.
Oh, I like that. A nutrition label.
It travels with the file and tells the viewer exactly what camera took the photo, when it was taken, and if AI generation was used at any point in the editing process.
That would be so helpful.
We are also seeing a shift in platform governance. YouTube, for instance, has implemented rules requiring creators to actively disclose when they upload realistic AI-generated or meaningfully altered content.
But the sources are also very clear that digital labels are not a silver bullet.
No, definitely not.
Metadata can often be stripped away by malicious actors. Everyday users have a habit of completely ignoring warning labels. And obviously, a scammer running a voice cloning operation isn't going to voluntarily click a box disclosing that their content is a deepfake.
Right, they aren't going to follow the rules.
So those structural solutions have to be heavily reinforced with psychological solutions. And this brings us to a fascinating concept called pre-bunking.
Pre-bunking operates on the concept of psychological inoculation.
Like a vaccine.
Exactly. In the same way that a medical vaccine introduces your body to a weakened version of a virus, so your immune system can recognize and fight the real thing, pre-bunking exposes people to the underlying strategies of manipulation.
That's brilliant.
The research highlights an educational game called Bad News, where players are actually put in the shoes of a misinformation creator.
So you play as the bad guy.
Yes, by actively learning how the manipulation playbook works, how to use emotionally charged language, how to deploy fake experts, how to exploit polarization, players become significantly better at spotting those exact tactics in the wild.
Oh, that makes total sense.
And the research shows this inoculation effect holds up across different cultures and languages.
It's essentially media literacy on steroids. But the data reveals a massive gap in how prepared the public is for this.
The huge gap.
Studies show that 58% of Europeans actively want training to help them distinguish true from false information online, but only 9% have actually received any form of it.
It's just not accessible enough yet.
We are essentially dropping the general public into a highly advanced digital war zone without any armor or training.
Which is why the third level of solutions, the highly practical everyday habits, is the most essential step individuals can take right now.
What can we do today?
You cannot sit around waiting for the government or the tech platforms to perfectly sanitize the internet. You have to actively build defenses within your own family and workplace.
This circles perfectly back to the phone scam scenario we opened with.
It really does.
The realism heuristic is dead. You cannot trust the voice on the other end of the line. So you need to establish strict verification rituals.
Rituals are key.
If you receive a panicked call from a loved one urgently asking for money, you need a hard and fast callback rule. You hang up the phone and you call them back on a known, trusted number.
Establishing known contact channels is step one. But the most powerful, immediate defense is establishing a family code word.
A code word.
It should be a random word or a specific phrase that only your immediate family knows. If someone calls claiming to be your spouse and they say they are in jail and need a wire transfer immediately, you simply ask for the code word.
And the AI won't know it.
An AI voice clone, even one trained on hours of their public social media videos, will not know the secret word. It stops the social engineering aspect of the scam in its tracks.
That is such a simple but powerful tool.
And above all else, you must refuse to act under panic pressure. Scammers weaponize urgency to bypass your logic. By simply slowing down, taking a breath, and insisting on verifying the situation, you strip the scammer of their primary advantage.
So what does this all mean? Looking at the massive scope of the reports we've covered today, the overarching theme is that trust isn't dead, but it absolutely has to be built differently from this point forward.
It has to adapt.
In the synthetic era, Trust can no longer rely purely on the idea that seeing is believing. It can no longer be a passive biological reflex. It requires active participation.
It's work now.
It must be built from surrounding context, independent confirmation, provenance tools, and above all, emotional discipline. The goal of understanding all of this isn't to become paranoid, throw your phone in the ocean, and isolate yourself from the world.
No, definitely not.
The goal is to become harder to manipulate.
Informed trust requires deliberate effort. It adds friction to our daily lives. But that friction is exactly what allows us to continue functioning, cooperating, and communicating in an increasingly complex world.
It really does. And it leaves me with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over. As our digital spaces become increasingly flooded with synthetic media, and as verification fatigue inevitably sets in across broader society, will our physical, face-to-face communities, our local neighborhoods, and our analog relationships become the ultimate premium currency of truth?
That's a profound thought.
When you reach a point where you cannot implicitly believe anything on a glowing screen, simply sitting across a table from another human being might become the most valuable, trusted interaction we have left.
I think you might be right.
Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective could shape our next deep dive.
We'd love to hear what you think.
Find My Mind Mashups everywhere you listen. Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Casts, Spotify, TikTok, YouTube, and now available on Apple Podcasts.